wanted to try to take an archetype from some RPGs or, from D&D and create a build out of it. What I came up with was the fleet-footed Cleric. So let's get into the build. The first option we take is Blood Redemption. Unfortunately, there's really not a good choice here. Scourge seems pointless since we don't really have any crit. So the next obvious choice will be Second Wind. Once again, we don't have any crit, so we won't be able to utilize Enduring Faith. Second Wind is arguably one of the best toughness regions in the game. 15% toughness on dodge with a 0.5 second internal cooldowns means you can regain your toughness back very quickly. Not only does this talent work on dodges, but this will also work on sprint slides against something that is trying to pew pew you. I believe this tactic will only work on the initial shot from the elite gunners. So if you try to do it with the elite gunners when they first start shooting and you slide, the only time it'll work. You can't do it while they're continuously shooting. Down from there, we will be picking up Blades of Faith, which in dum-dum terms is just throwing knives. Now I know there are some of you who hate using these, but I implore you, once you get used to throwing these, you will never want to use anything else. These knives are quick and can kill a target quickly with a well-placed throw. They are also very useful when you're using a ranged weapon that takes too long to take out or to reload, like a bolt gun or a flamethrower, anything like that. We pick up a cluster of nodes right below Blades of Faith, first one being Dance of Death. This one is very important as this allows you to basically ignore suppression that gets thrown at you and makes shooting your gun a hell of a lot easier. Thy Wrath Be Swift is always an important one for me as this allows me not to get punished by gunners or shotgunners. Instead, this allows me to punish them. I also hate getting interrupted out of my heavy swing, so I generally take this talent 9 times out of 10. Good balance is going to be a must-have as we don't have a lot of damage reduction with this build. We are heavily relying on our dodges to not take damage, but if we happen to take damage, let's say from some gunners, then this will help mitigate our health or toughness loss. To the left, we will be grabbing the Emperor's Bullet, which is, it's an alright talent. We will be dumping our mag anyway, so this will at least be useful. We mostly pick it up because we want to grab Shield of Contempt. Since we are a Cleric, we want to support not only ourselves, but our team as well. We will be getting 60% damage reduction on proccing health damage, not toughness damage. This can only apply to one person in coherency every 10 seconds. So it will be very good as someone, that even means you, gets surrounded and take too many hits. This will hopefully prevent your death and get you out of bad situations like that. Further left, we pick up Duelist. Although we won't be critting that often, we will be hitting weak spots very often. And since the name of the game is to dodge a lot, this will pretty much always be up, which is a big boost to your damage. Since we have the powers of the gods on our side, we cannot die. So we have to pick up Until Death and Holy Revenant. These two will help prevent any mistakes you might make. Missed a dodge on an overhead? No worries, because you can't die. Or at least, after waiting 2 minutes, you won't be able to die. Chorus of Spiritual Fortitude will be our ability of choice. We are a Cleric after all, and we need our cross to purge any bad juju. Not only does our cross make us feel more comfortable, this also lets us support our team by giving them an overshield, including giving yourself one too. By performing this exorcism, you can stop everything in its tracks to give your team time to recover, or to purge the heretics that are in your way. As a Cleric, we are one with our mace. In order to swing this hunk of metal faster, we pick up Faithful Frenzy, giving us an extra 10% attack speed, finely tuning our offensive prowess. Speaking of offensive prowess, we also take Sustained Assault, which gives us a stacking 4% melee damage buff to 5 stacks, for a total of 20%, just in case that math was too hard for anyone to do. Pious Cutthroat will give us much needed cooldown for our chorus ability. The shockmaul, which is our weapon of choice for this build, has great crowd control. So as you are swinging into a horde, you will either stop them or knock them down on the ground, which gives you great opportunity to smack them in the back, giving you the cooldown you need to purge the demons. Being the fleet-footed Cleric as we are able to generate stacks of momentum via Inexorable Judgment. The momentum can stack up to 15 times, and each stack gives us 1% melee and range attack speed, and 1% damage. One thing the game does not tell you is this also gives you extra dodge speed, dodge distance, and quicker dodge reset time depending on how many stacks you use. The mod Enhanced Descriptions details this more, and I can confirm that the dodges definitely feel quicker. The only thing I am unsure of is the dodge distance. If it is making a difference, it is very small and unnoticeable, at least from my testing. When I'm actually playing a game with it, I can actually feel a difference, especially with a weapon that has a small dodge distance or something that doesn't have like a high dodge distance. The last thing we pick up is Inebriate's Poise, which gives us 3 stacks of momentum on dodge. This helps us to keep our momentum stacked when we aren't sprinting around everywhere. Typically, if you are fighting a horde, you aren't really running around everywhere, but instead staying in one area dodging around. So this makes sure we stay close to our max stacks as possible. Our weapon of choice is, of course, the shockmaul. This is the most fitting weapon for a cleric archetype. Now, to get the most damage out of this weapon, the 2 best combinations of blessings will be High Voltage and Skull Crusher. High Voltage gives us a 25% extra damage to enemies that are electrocuted, which is basically when you swing at an enemy, you put a debuff of electrocution on them, allowing you to do more damage. So your first swing will always do less, while your follow-up swings will be doing the 25% extra damage. Skull Crusher will kind of work the same way, but not with all the enemies. Normal human-sized enemies will get flinched with the swing and put stacks of Skull Crusher on them. The trick is, you will only be doing extra damage to them as long as they are staggered. But from my testing, as long as you can swing fast enough, your consecutive swings will do the extra damage. If you want to do extra damage to, let's say, a Crusher, you have to use your special attack in order to put stacks of Skull Crusher on them and to do the extra damage. The shockmaul does pretty good damage to Carapace, so to amplify that damage even more, I decided to put 25% damage to Carapace on it. This helps takes out Crushers and Maulers quicker than what you normally would. The other perk I went with is 25% damage to Flak. I typically like to choose this one for all my weapons because a lot of the enemies in the game have flak armor, so you can get a lot of benefit just by using this one perk. Our range weapon is going to be the Bolt Gun. Since the shockmaul's worst aspect is its unyielding damage, bossing will be a bit of a problem. Same goes with killing bulwarks and reapers in a timely manner. One thing you can do for bulwarks is use the special on the shockmaul, then switch to your bolt gun and blast them to pieces. Of course, if a boss shows up, you can take this baby out and start blasting over their face, or in the Beast of Nurgle's case, start blasting in its ball. I've been running this with Puncture and Pinning Fire. The extra bleed ticks from Puncture will help save some bullets during your runs by helping with some breakpoints. And I chose Pinning Fire over Clavicate because I prefer to shoot in small bursts rather than just holding down the trigger. Although if you are mainly using this just for bossing, then Clavicate will probably be your best choice because an extra crit on the boss it does chunk them a lot. Then the perks I went with are 25% damage to Unyielding to help kill bosses faster, and then 25% damage to Carapace to help take out groups of Crushers that may or may not overwhelm you. Or the Curios I went with is 2 of them health and 1 of them toughness. The perks being stamina regen because I spam the push attack quite a bit with this mace, but you are more than welcome to change it to anything you want. I am also running 10% revive speed, fitting with the theme of the build as a cleric. Then I chose to run 2 5% toughness and 1 5% health to even out our stats just a little bit, leaving us with nearly 300 health and 150 toughness, which is pretty good. Let me know what you guys think of the build, and if there is something specific you want to see, like a different class from an RPG, or maybe from D&D, leave a comment and I'll see if I can pull it off. I will make sure it's battle tested to see if it can actually be viable in Auric Damnation. I averaged about 500k damage a run with this cleric build, and a lot of boss damage too. So for a hybrid support build, I thought it performed really well. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and consider subscribing if you want to see more builds or more runs.
Goodbye.